I stared at my phone in disbelief, the landlord's words still ringing in my ears. 30 days. We had 30 days to pack up our lives and find somewhere else to live. My hands were shaking as I set the phone down on my desk, drawing concerned looks from my coworkers. My name is Charlie, and at 29, I never expected to be raising my two younger brothers while trying to keep my career afloat. But life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. Everything okay? Vanessa, my boss, appeared at my cubicle, her usually stern expression softened with concern. I gestured vaguely at my phone. Our landlord's selling the building. We have 30 days to move out. Vanessa leaned against my desk, crossing her arms. That's rough timing, especially with the promotion we discussed coming up. Right. Promotion. The one that could finally put us in a better financial position but would require more hours and possibly relocating. I forced a smile. I'll figure something out. I always do. The rest of my workday passed in a blur of spreadsheets and worried texts from Lucas, my middle brother. He was supposed to be focusing on his college finals, not apartment hunting. And Ethan? God, Ethan was going to lose it when he heard the news. By the time I got home, the sun had set and my tiny apartment was dark except for the glow of Ethan's laptop. He was hunched over it at the kitchen table, probably working on his art portfolio for college applications. Hey, I called out, dropping my keys in the bowl by the door. Have you eaten? Lucas ordered pizza. Ethan didn't look up. There's some left in the fridge. I headed to the kitchen, my heels clicking against the worn linoleum. The sound always reminded me of our mom, how she'd pace these same floors when she was worried about bills. Now here I was doing the same dance. We need to talk, I said, pulling out a chair across from him. Ethan finally looked up, his dark eyes narrowing. That's never good. Before I could start, Lucas burst through the front door, still in his work uniform from the campus coffee shop. Charlie, please tell me you got the same call I did. About the building? I nodded. Yeah, this morning. What call? What's going on? Ethan closed his laptop, looking between us. I took a deep breath. The landlord's selling the building. We have 30 days to find a new place. The silence that followed was deafening. Ethan's face went through a range of emotions before settling on anger. 30 days? Are you kidding me? Where are we supposed to go? I'm already looking at places. Lucas jumped in, pulling out his phone. But everything in our price range is either too far from your school or what? I asked. Lucas hesitated, then met my eyes. Or we could call Uncle Greg. The mere mention of his name made my stomach turn. Absolutely not. Charlie, come on, Lucas pleaded. He's got that empty house in Brighton and he's been trying to make amends. Make amends? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. He abandoned us when Mom and Dad died. Left 3 kids to fend for themselves because he couldn't handle the responsibility. That was 5 years ago, Ethan muttered. People change. I stood up so quickly my chair scraped against the floor. We're not calling Greg. End of discussion. I'll figure something out. But as I walked to my room, I caught Lucas and Ethan exchanging looks. The kind of looks that told me this conversation was far from over. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a voice whispered that maybe they were right. Maybe we did need help. But accepting help from Greg? That would mean forgiving him. And I wasn't sure I was ready to do that. Not after everything he'd done. Not after everything we'd been through. I closed my bedroom door and leaned against it, closing my eyes. 30 days to find a new home, keep my family together, and somehow stay sane in the process. Just another day in the life of being everyone's rock. Little did I know this was just the beginning of our problems. The next morning, I found myself sitting in my car outside Jenna's apartment, clutching a coffee that had long gone cold. Spending most of the night scrolling through rental listings that were either way out of our budget or too far from everything we needed. You look like hell, Jenna said, sliding into the passenger seat. She was already dressed for her shift at the hospital, her scrubs wrinkle-free and her hair neatly pulled back. Spill. I told her about the eviction notice, about Lucas suggesting we contact Greg, about the growing distance I felt between me and my brothers. The words tumbled out faster than I could control them. Have you actually looked at Greg's house in Brighton? Jenna asked carefully. Not you two. I started the car, perhaps a bit too aggressively. I'd rather live in my car than take anything from him. Your brothers might not feel the same way. The truth in her words stung. At a red light, I checked my phone to find 3 missed calls from Lucas and a text from Ethan. We need to talk. For real this time. Work wasn't much better. Vanessa called me into her office before I could even set my things down. Close the door, she said, not looking up from her computer. The regional position we discussed? The timeline's been moved up. They need an answer by the end of the week. My stomach dropped. That's too soon. With everything going on. Charlie. Vanessa finally looked at me, her expression softening. This is a career-making opportunity. Double your current salary, full benefits, relocation assistance. The kind of stability your family needs. In Chicago, I reminded her. Ethan's still in high school. Lucas is mid-semester. They're not children anymore. She leaned forward. Sometimes being a good guardian means making tough choices for their future. I left her office feeling even more conflicted than before. By lunch, my phone buzzed with another text from Lucas. Uncle Greg's in town. He wants to meet. Just hear him out. The words on my screen blurred as anger and fear mixed in my chest. I called Lucas immediately. You contacted him? I demanded when he answered. Someone had to do something, Lucas shot back. While you're busy pretending everything's fine. Everything is not fine. But bringing him back into our lives won't fix anything. You don't know that. Lucas's voice cracked slightly. You're so caught up in hating him that you can't see we're drowning here. Ethan's college applications are due soon. My tuition payment is late again, and now we're about to be homeless. I'm handling it, I insisted, but the words sounded hollow even to me. No, you're not. You're just doing what you always do, trying to control everything yourself because you don't trust anyone else. Not even us. The line went dead before I could respond. I sat at my desk, staring at nothing until Vanessa's voice startled me. Team meeting in 5, she announced, then paused. Everything okay? I nodded automatically, but as I gathered my things, my hand brushed against an old photo tucked in my desk drawer. Mom, Dad, all of us at the beach. Greg was there too, his arm around Dad's shoulders, both of them laughing at some forgotten joke. It was taken just months before the accident, before Greg disappeared when we needed him most. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Ethan. I found Greg's house listing online. It's perfect for us, Charlie. Please just look at it. I closed my eyes, feeling the walls closing in. The promotion in Chicago loomed like an escape route, but one that would mean leaving my brothers behind. Greg's offer sat like a poison apple, tempting but dangerous. And somewhere in between was the truth I'd been avoiding. I couldn't keep doing this alone. Opening my browser, I typed in Brighton real estate and started searching for Greg's house. Not because I was considering it, I told myself. Just to prove to everyone, including myself, why it was such a bad idea. But as the listing loaded, my heart sank. 'Cause despite everything I wanted to believe, it really was perfect. I came home early from work, hoping to catch Lucas before his evening class. What I found instead stopped me dead in my tracks. Greg's silver Mercedes was parked outside our building, and through our living room window I could see him sitting on our couch, talking animatedly with both my brothers. My hand shook as I unlocked the door. Conversation died instantly when I walked in, 3 pairs of eyes turning to me. Greg stood up, and for a moment I was thrown by how much older he looked. His dark hair had gone mostly gray, but that easy smile was exactly the same. Charlie, he said, taking a step forward. You look just like Sarah. The mention of our mother's name in his mouth felt like a slap. Get out. Charlie, please, Lucas started, but I cut him off. How long? I demanded, dropping my bag on the floor. How long have you been meeting with him behind my back? Ethan stood up, his face flushed. 2 weeks. And we wouldn't have had to hide it if you weren't so stubborn about. Stubborn. I laughed, the sound harsh and foreign. He abandoned us at Mom and Dad's funeral. Literally walked away while we were standing there, crying over their graves. I know I did, Greg said quietly. And I've regretted it every day since. Save it. I turned to Lucas. You went behind my back. After everything we've been through, everything I've done. That's exactly the problem. Lucas exploded. Everything you've done. Everything you're doing. You're so busy being our savior that you can't see you're suffocating us. The words hit like physical blows. I took a step back, bumping into the wall. The house in Brighton, Greg interjected smoothly. It's just sitting there empty. 3 bedrooms, close to both schools. It could be a fresh start for all of you. There's always a catch with you, I said, my voice trembling. What do you want? Nothing. He spread his hands. Just a chance to make things right. Charlie, Ethan said, his voice softer now. I got accepted to the art program at Brighton College. Full scholarship. The room spun slightly. What? When? Last week. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I didn't know how to tell you because I knew you'd never want to move there. The house would be perfect, Lucas added. And I could transfer to Brighton University. Their business program is actually better than... Stop. I pressed my hands against my temples. Just stop. You've been planning this whole thing without me? Because you never listen, Ethan shouted. You're so caught up in proving you can do everything alone that you don't care what we want. Of course I care. Everything I do is for you. No, Lucas said quietly. Everything you do is about proving Uncle Greg wrong. About proving you're better than him. We're just along for the ride. Greg took a step toward me. Charlie, I know I hurt you. All of you. But you're hurting them now by refusing to even consider. Don't. I held up a hand, my vision blurring. Don't you dare try to parent me now. I grabbed my bag and headed for the door, but Lucas's next words froze me in place. Mom and Dad want us to be a family again. I turned slowly, feeling something break inside me. Mom and Dad aren't here. Because I pointed at Greg, couldn't handle being their executor. Couldn't handle being our guardian. And now you want to trust him again? People change, Ethan said. No, I whispered, they just get better at hiding who they really are. I walked out, ignoring their calls after me. In my car, I pulled out my phone and typed a quick email to Vanessa. I'll take the position in Chicago. As I hit send, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. Mom's eyes stared back at me, and for the first time, I wondered if I was making the same mistake Greg had, running away when things got too hard. But it was too late now. The choice was made, and I'd rather leave on my own terms than watch my family slip away piece by piece. Little did I know, Greg's real motives were about to change everything. The morning after accepting the Chicago position, I found myself in Vanessa's office, staring at the relocation paperwork. My signature would make it official. A new life, a fresh start, a complete abandonment of everything I'd fought to protect. The company needs an answer today, Vanessa said, sliding the papers across her desk. The regional office is pushing hard. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Jenna. Greg just left my cafe. He was asking questions about your parents' will. Something feels off. My stomach lurched. I need an hour, I told Vanessa, already heading for the door. I found Jenna waiting outside her cafe, still wearing her apron. He was showing papers to some lawyer guy, she said without preamble. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught something about estate conditions and guardianship requirements. That doesn't make sense, I muttered. The estate was settled years ago. Was it? Jenna raised an eyebrow. Or did you just take Greg's word for it when he handed everything over? Question hit me like a physical blow. I'd been 19, overwhelmed with grief and sudden responsibility. Greg had handled all the legal matters before disappearing. Mi ponerán luchas. Charlie, you need to come home. Now. I'm working. Ethan found something in Greg's car. Documents. About Mom and Dad's will. 20 minutes later, I stood in our living room, staring at papers spread across the coffee table. Ethan sat silent on the couch, his face pale. Lucas paced by the window. He left these in plain sight, Lucas said. In an unlocked car. Almost like he wanted us to find them, I finished. The documents revealed an ugly truth. Our parents will had specific conditions about guardianship and inheritance. The house in Brighton wasn't just Greg's property, it was part of a trust meant for all of us. But there was a catch. The inheritance splits 4 ways, I read aloud, my voice shaking. But only if the family stays together until Ethan turns 18. That's why he came back now, Lucas said quietly. Ethan's birthday is in 3 months. He's been collecting the trust money all these years, I realized. Money that should have been helping us. My phone buzzed again, Vanessa. Need those papers signed ASAP. I stared at the message, everything suddenly clicking into place. Greg's convenient return, his push to move us to Brighton, his questions about my career plans. He needed us under his roof before Ethan's birthday to maintain control of the trust. Charlie! Ethan's voice was small. What are we going to do? Before I could answer, a key turned in our front door. Greg walked in, freezing when he saw the papers spread out before us. I can explain, he started. Save it. I stood up slowly. 5 years. You let us struggle for 5 years while sitting on our inheritance. I wasn't ready for the responsibility then. He spread his hands. I am now. We can still make this work. The house in Brighton was our house all along. I stepped closer to him. Every penny you took was meant for them. I gestured to my brothers. The trust requires all of us to live together, Greg said smoothly. You're welcome to move in too, unless you have other plans. His eyes flickered to my phone, still displaying Vanessa's message. The threat was clear: stay and play happy family or watch my brothers lose their inheritance. I deleted Vanessa's message without responding. You're right about one thing, I said quietly. This ends now. But not the way you planned. Greg's confident smile faltered slightly. What does that mean? I picked up my phone again, dialing a number I'd memorized years ago. Remember Dad's old law partner? The one you convinced me not to contact during the estate settlement? I think it's time we had a chat about executor misconduct. Color drained from Greg's face, and for the first time I saw real fear in his eyes. You're not the only one who can play the long game, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. And unlike you, I've got nothing left to lose. The meeting with Dad's old law partner, James Mitchell, lasted 3 hours. By the time I left his office, my head was pounding and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. The stack of documents he'd given me felt like lead in my bag. Charlie! Ethan's voice crackled through my phone. Where are you? Greg's here again, saying something about a deadline. Don't sign anything, I snapped, fumbling with my car keys. I'm on my way. The world tilted sideways as I stood up. Next thing I knew, I was on the ground, James's concerned face hovering above me. I'm calling an ambulance, he said firmly. No, I need to get home. My brothers. Your brothers need you alive and functioning. He helped me up but kept a steadying hand on my arm. When's the last time you slept? Ate something? I couldn't remember. The hospital lights were too bright. A doctor was saying something about exhaustion, dehydration, and dangerous stress levels. My phone kept buzzing. Lucas, Ethan, Vanessa, Greg. I closed my eyes just for a moment. When I opened them again, Jenna was there, still in her scrubs from her shift. "Before you ask," she said, "Lucas and Ethan are at my place with my kids." Greg tried to get them to go with him, but they refused. Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by crushing guilt. I'm supposed to be taking care of them, not the other way around. Yeah. Jenna leaned forward. "How's that working out for you?" "James found proof," I said instead of answering. "Greg's been embezzling from the trust fund. Nearly $500,000 over 5 years. Jesus." Jenna sat back. "No wonder he's pushing so hard to get control before Ethan's birthday. He's been paying himself management fees, claiming he's been maintaining properties that don't exist." My laugh sounded hollow. "All those nights I stayed up wondering how to pay Lucas's tuition." "Charlie." Jenna's voice was gentle but firm. "You need to tell them everything. They'll blame themselves. For trusting him, for pushing me to." The door opened, cutting me off. Lucas and Ethan stood there, looking younger than I'd seen them in years. "Why didn't you tell us?" Lucas asked quietly. "About the trust fund? About any of it?" "Because I thought I could handle it." My voice cracked. "Because I wanted to protect you. Like Greg wanted to protect us?" Ethan's words hit like a slap. "By keeping secrets? Making decisions for everyone? That's different, is it?" Lucas stepped closer. "Because from where we're standing, you're both so focused on being right that you forgot to let us choose for ourselves." The monitor beside my bed beeped faster as my heart rate spiked. A nurse appeared, frowning at the readings. "We found Mom's journals," Ethan said quickly before the nurse could usher them out. "In the attic boxes. She wrote about Greg, about why she made those conditions in the will. It wasn't about keeping us together. It was about teaching us to trust each other." The irony of it hit me like a physical blow. All these years, I'd been so focused on protecting them from Greg's betrayal that I'd never noticed how much I'd started to mirror his behavior. The secrets, control, the unilateral decisions. "I don't know how to do this any other way," I whispered. "Then let us help you figure it out," Lucas said. "Together." The nurse started ushering them toward the door, but Ethan turned back. "Greg's giving us until tomorrow to decide about Brighton. Says it's our last chance." I closed my eyes, remembering Mom's favorite saying, "The truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off." "Tell him," I said, opening my eyes, "that we'll see him in court." The smile that spread across Ethan's face reminded me so much of Mom that my chest ached. For the first time in years, I felt like maybe I wasn't just fighting against Greg, I was fighting for something bigger. But as my brothers left, my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "You really want to know what happened the night your parents died?" The text about my parents' death haunted me for 3 days before I agreed to meet Greg at the diner where Mom used to take us for Sunday breakfast. I chose it hoping the public setting would keep things civil. I was wrong. "I didn't kill them, if that's what you're thinking," Greg said without preamble, sliding into the booth across from me. "But I might as well have." My coffee cup rattled against its saucer. "What does that mean?" "That night, your father called me. Asked me to pick them up from the charity gala because he'd had too much to drink." Greg's fingers drummed against the table. "I said I was too busy. Told him to call a cab." The memory hit me like a punch to the gut. Mom and Dad's car wrapped around a tree, the police report mentioning brake failure. "You're lying." "Check your mother's phone records from that night. I know you kept their old phones." He leaned forward. 3 calls to my number. All unanswered. My vision blurred. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because you need to understand, I'm not the monster you think I am. I'm just a coward." He pulled out an envelope. "These are the trust fund documents. Sign them and everything goes back to how it should be. You get the money, the house, everything. In exchange for what? Drop the lawsuit. Let me try to make things right. The waitress appeared with more coffee. I waited until she left before speaking. And the guardianship clause? Your demand to control Ethan's future. Gone. Greg spread his hands. No strings attached. Felt too easy. Why should I believe you? Because I owe Sarah and David's children more than just money. His voice cracked slightly. I owe you the truth and a chance to heal. My phone buzzed, a text from James. Don't sign anything. Found something big. Meet me us up. I need time, I told Greg. You have until midnight. He stood up. After that, the offer expires and we do this the hard way. I found James in his office, surrounded by old files. Your parents' accident wasn't an accident, he said without looking up. The brake lines were cut. The room spun. What? Insurance investigators report. It was buried in the initial investigation because they couldn't prove intent. He handed me a file. But guess who filed a life insurance claim the day after their death? Before the police even notified next of kin? Greg, I whispered. For $2 million. James's eyes were hard. The policy was taken out 3 months before the accident, with Greg as the sole beneficiary. My phone buzzed again. Lucas. Greg's at the apartment. Says you agreed to sign everything over. Did you? Then Ethan, something's wrong. He's acting weird. Where are you? I have to go, I told James, already running for the door. Charlie, wait. There's more. But I was already gone, racing through traffic, my heart pounding. When I reached our apartment, Greg's car was there, but something was off. The front door was slightly open. Inside, the living room was empty, papers scattered everywhere. Lucas's laptop lay broken on the floor. Ethan, I called out. Lucas? No answer. Just a note on the kitchen counter in Greg's handwriting. Some debts can never be repaid, but maybe they can be inherited. Mi ponerán un non number. With shaking hands, I answered. The Brighton house, Greg's voice was cold, different. Come alone. You have 1 hour or we'll find out if history really does repeat itself. The phone slipped from my hand, clattering to the floor. On the counter next to Greg's note lay Mom's old journal, open to an entry I'd never seen before. Greg knows something's wrong with the brakes. Says he'll help us after the gala. I just pray we make it home safely. The truth hit me like a wave of ice water. This wasn't about money or redemption. It was about finishing what he'd started 5 years ago. And now my brothers were paying the price for my revenge. The Brighton house loomed against the darkening sky, its windows like empty eyes watching my approach. I called James and the police, but Greg's warning echoed in my head. Come alone or they die like your parents. My headlights caught movement behind an upstairs window. Lucas, his face pressed against the glass. He was mouthing something I couldn't make out. The front door was unlocked. In the study, Greg's voice called from down the hall. Where David used to work. I found them in our father's old office. Ethan sat rigid in a leather chair, Greg's hand heavy on his shoulder. Lucas stood by the window, a bruise darkening his cheek. Family reunion, Greg said, smiling that same smile he'd worn at the funeral. Just like old times. Let them go, I said. This is between us. Everything I did was for this family. Greg's fingers tightened on Ethan's shoulder. Your father was running the company into the ground. The insurance money saved everything, the business, the properties, your future. You murdered them. I tried to help. Greg's composure cracked. I told David to sell before it was too late. The brake lines. That was just insurance. They weren't supposed to take that road home. Charlie, Lucas said quietly. The papers on the desk. Iglanqueton. Adoption papers lay spread out, not just for Ethan, but for Lucas too. Next to them sat a glass of water, half empty. Sign them, Greg said. Make this right. We can be a proper family again. Like you made things right with Mom and Dad? Something shifted in Greg's eyes. The police will find evidence that you tampered with the brakes on my car. Revenge for your parents. Tragic, really. And with you gone, who better to care for your brothers? Ethan's face had gone pale, his breathing shallow. The water glass. Oh God. What did you give him? Nothing permanent. Yet, Greg pulled a small bottle from his pocket. Just insurance. Sign the papers, Charlie. Time's running out. Lucas moved slightly, catching my eye. On the desk behind Greg sat Dad's old letter opener, the one Mom always said was too sharp to be just for mail. You're right, I said, stepping closer to the desk. About Dad, about the company, about everything. Greg's grip on Ethan loosened slightly. I knew you'd understand eventually. I understand that you're still a coward. I grabbed the papers. Still letting others pay for your mistakes. Charlie, Greg's warning was cut short by Lucas tackling him from behind. The bottle flew from his hand, shattering against the wall. Ethan slumped forward as I lunged for the letter opener. Greg threw Lucas off, turning toward me with rage in his eyes. You're just like your father, he spat. Too stubborn, too. The letter opener felt like ice in my hand as Greg's words turned to a choked gasp. He looked down at the blade buried in his shoulder, his eyes wide with disbelief. No, I said, watching him stumble backward. I'm like my mother. She knew what you were planning. That's why she left evidence everywhere. The journal, the phone records, the insurance investigation. Sirens wailed in the distance as Greg collapsed into Dad's old chair, blood staining his expensive shirt. She knew someone would need to protect her children from you, I continued, moving to check on Ethan. His pulse was steady, his breathing evening out. And she made sure I'd be strong enough to do it. Police burst through the door as Greg reached for something in his jacket. A shot rang out and he slumped forward, a gun falling from his limp hand. Later at the hospital, Lucas would tell me he'd seen Greg slip something into Ethan's water, just a sedative, thankfully. The adoption papers were fake, meant to buy time until he could finish what he'd started with our parents. But in that moment, holding Ethan while Lucas called for paramedics, I finally understood what Mom meant in her last journal entry. Sometimes protecting your family means being willing to lose everything to save them. I hadn't lost everything, though. I'd found something stronger than revenge, the truth about who we really were as a family. And that was worth more than any inheritance Greg could have offered. 3 months after Greg's arrest, I stood in the Brighton house again, but this time surrounded by moving boxes and the sound of Ethan and Lucas arguing over who got which bedroom. You sure about this? Jenna asked, helping me unpack kitchen boxes. Living in the house where our parents' murderer tried to kill us. I smiled wryly. No. But it's legally ours now, and selling it feels like letting him win somehow. The investigation had revealed everything, Greg's embezzlement, the insurance fraud, even evidence linking him to 2 other accidents involving business partners. He wouldn't see freedom again, but sometimes I still caught myself checking the locks twice at night. Charlie, Ethan called from upstairs. Found something in the study. I found my brothers kneeling by Dad's old desk, a hidden compartment exposed in its base. Inside lay a stack of letters, all addressed to us, dated for years after our parents' death. Mom wrote these, Lucas said softly, holding one up. She knew something was wrong. These were her insurance policy, not the money kind. The letter in my hands was dated for my 30th birthday, still 2 months away. I tucked it away unopened, not ready yet for Mom's final words. Hey, Vanessa appeared in the doorway, surprising us all. Sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to deliver this in person. She handed me an envelope, a contract for a new position. Remote work, flexible hours, same salary as the Chicago offer. The company's expanding the local office, she said. We need someone who understands both business and family obligations. someone who's proven they can handle impossible situations. Later that evening, we sat on the back porch, the same one where we'd played as kids during family barbecues. Lucas was explaining his plans to transfer to the local university's business program, while Ethan sketched the sunset, occasionally showing us his progress. "I found this too," Lucas said, pulling out an old photo. Mom and Dad at their wedding, with Greg standing beside them, all three laughing at something off camera. "Should we burn it?" "No," I said after a moment. "Keep it. Not for him, but for us. To remember that sometimes the people who hurt us most start out meaning well, and that protecting your family means more than just keeping them safe. It means trusting them too," Ethan added quietly, not looking up from his sketch. My phone buzzed, a text from James. "Final paperwork filed. Greg's assets transferred to the trust. You're officially free of him." Free. Such a simple word for such a complicated feeling. "I've been thinking," I said, watching the sun sink behind the trees Mom had loved so much. "Maybe we should start a scholarship. In Mom and Dad's name. For kids who've lost parents to violence." Lucas nodded slowly. "Use Greg's money to help the kind of people he hurt. Mom would like that." Speaking of Mom, Ethan set down his sketchbook, revealing not the sunset but a family portrait. Mom, Dad, the three of us, all as we looked now. Adult me, college-age Lucas, artist Ethan. The family we'd become without them. "I'm thinking of submitting this for the Brighton College Art Show." "It's perfect," I whispered, seeing us through his eyes, broken but healing, separate but connected. A final text lit up my phone, unknown number from the prison. "You won!" Just like Sarah would have. I deleted it without responding. Greg didn't deserve to speak Mom's name, not anymore. But as I watched my brothers argue over the last slice of pizza, I realized something Mom had known all along. Winning wasn't about revenge or justice or even protection. It was about choosing to build something new from the ashes of what was lost. I finally understood why she'd left those letters, dated years into a future she'd never see. She wasn't just leaving us words, she was leaving us hope, trust in each other, and the courage to become the family she'd always known we could be. Even without her to show us the way.